Number 8. The Whistlers. Imagine you're an old-timey radio operator in the 1950s, sitting alone in a dark room, trying to tune into a signal from across the ocean. Suddenly, through the static, you hear it. A high-pitched, descending whistle that sounds like a sci-fi laser blast, or, if you've had too much coffee, a phantom dropping a bomb from the sky. You'd probably think you were picking up a secret military weapon, or the ghost of a really sad bird. For decades, these sounds, known as whistlers, were a total mystery. They were just these eerie, downward-gliding tones that seemed to come from nowhere. It turns out, the sound isn't aliens trying to prank call us, but something way cooler and just as weird. The culprit is lightning. When a lightning bolt strikes, it releases a burst of radio energy. Some of this energy shoots up into our magnetosphere, gets snagged by the Earth's magnetic field lines, and is flung thousands of miles into space before arcing back down to the opposite hemisphere. As the signal travels this insane cosmic roller coaster, the different frequencies get stretched out, with the high ones arriving before the low ones. The result is that iconic pew sound. So, the next time you hear a recording of a whistler, you're not listening to a space ghost. You're listening to the stretched-out scream of a lightning strike from halfway across the world, which took a vacation to space before reaching your ears. Basically, Earth has its own built-in spooky sound effects generator. Number 7. Jupiter's Demon, Gargling. If Earth's sounds are creepy, Jupiter's are just plain rude. When NASA's Juno spacecraft got close to Jupiter, it didn't just send back pretty pictures. It sent back audio that sounds like the planet is actively trying to scare us away. Forget gentle space hums. This is a chaotic mess of shrieks, howls, and what can only be described as demonic gargling. It's the kind of sound you'd hear in a horror movie right before a monster eats the camera. So, what's happening? Is Jupiter the angry god of the solar system throwing a tantrum? Kind of. The planet has a ridiculously powerful magnetic field, way stronger than Earth's. This field traps a ton of charged particles, electrons and ions, from the solar wind. These particles get accelerated to insane speeds, creating what are called plasma waves. Juno's instruments didn't record sound in the traditional sense, since space is a vacuum. Instead, it recorded these electromagnetic waves and translated them into a frequency we can hear. The result is the raw, unfiltered voice of a gas giant's magnetic fury. Listening to it feels wrong, like you're eavesdropping on a private conversation between a planet and its own personal demons. It's not screaming in the human sense, but it's so chaotic and aggressive that it feels almost biological. It's the universe reminding us that some things are so massive and powerful, their very existence sounds like a nightmare. Number 6. Saturn's Ring Chorus. Okay, so Jupiter is a screamer. Saturn, its neighbor, is a bit more theatrical. You'd think a planet famous for its beautiful, elegant rings would sound like a gentle harp or a cosmic wind chime. You would be hilariously wrong. When the Cassini spacecraft plunged through the gap between Saturn and its rings, it recorded something that sounds less like music and more like the frantic, crackling radio chatter of a spaceship falling apart during re-entry. It's a barrage of pops, crackles, hisses, and whistles. It's the sound of pure, unadulterated chaos. The source of this racket isn't the rings themselves singing, but rather the complex dance happening between the rings and the planet's own ionosphere. The instruments on Cassini were picking up radio and plasma waves generated by charged particles bouncing back and forth. But what's truly bizarre is how the sounds reflect what the particles were hitting. Dust grains from the rings hitting the spacecraft sounded like little pops and crackles. Waves bouncing between the planet and rings created eerie, whistling tones. It was as if Cassini was flying through an electrical storm made of dust and ice. The recordings are so complex that scientists could literally hear the moment the spacecraft crossed from a dusty region into a clear one. It's less of a scream and more of the soundtrack to a cosmic car crash happening at thousands of miles per hour. Number 5. The Singing Comet. When you think of a comet, you probably picture a silent, majestic rock hurtling through the void. But in 2014, the Rosetta mission discovered that Comet 67P isn't just a silent traveler, it sings. And its song is one of the weirdest things you'll ever hear. It's not a scream, but a rhythmic, pulsing, almost synthetic-sounding series of clicks and pops. It sounds like a broken alien fax machine or some kind of bizarre deep space Morse code. For a while, scientists were baffled. How could a rock in a vacuum be making a sound? It turns out the singing is caused by the comet's activity. As 67P gets closer to the sun, the ice on its surface turns directly into gas in a process called sublimation. This outgassing isn't smooth. It happens in jets and bursts, releasing neutral particles into the space around it. These particles then get ionized by UV light from the sun, creating oscillations in the comet's magnetic field. The Rosetta spacecraft's instruments picked up these magnetic fluctuations. The original frequency was about 40-50 MHz, far too low for a human to hear, so scientists had to speed up the recording about 10,000 times. The result is this strange, percussive tune. It's the sound of a celestial body literally falling apart as it flies. And that process, when translated, just happens to sound like a low-budget electronic track from the 80s. Number 4. The sun's heartbeat. The sun is a 4.6 billion-year-old nuclear furnace so violent that it holds an entire solar system captive with its gravity. So, what does a star like that sound like? You'd expect a constant, deafening roar, right? Well, since space is a vacuum, it doesn't transmit sound. But the sun is not quiet. Scientists using helioseismology, which is a fancy way of saying they study the sun's vibrations, have discovered that our star is constantly humming. It's filled with sound waves, acoustic energy trapped inside that makes the whole thing vibrate like a colossal bell. These sound waves are generated by the massive convection currents bubbling on its surface. Think of it like a pot of boiling water the size of 1,000,000 Earths. All that churning creates pressure waves that travel through the sun's interior, bouncing from one side to the other. By observing the Doppler shift of the light from the sun's surface, scientists can map these vibrations and convert them into an audible frequency. The sound is a low, deep, pulsating hum, a stellar heartbeat. It's a surprisingly gentle sound for something so incredibly violent. But it's also deeply unsettling. It's the constant, underlying thrum of unimaginable power, the ambient noise of a fusion reaction that could vaporize us in an instant. It's the sound of the engine that runs our entire world, and it sounds like a sleeping god. Number 3. The black hole's groan. This one is the heavyweight champion of cosmic horror sounds. For years, there was a popular misconception, often repeated, that in space no one can hear you scream, because space is a vacuum. That's mostly true. But in 2003, NASA made a discovery that changed everything. They pointed the Chandra X-ray Observatory at the Perseus Cluster, a massive collection of galaxies about 250 million light-years away. At the center of this cluster is a supermassive black hole, and astronomers noticed that the hot gas cloud surrounding it had ripples. These weren't just random patterns, they were pressure waves, or sound waves, being pushed outward by the black hole. The cause? Unimaginably powerful eruptions from the black hole itself were creating these waves, which were propagating through the galaxy cluster's gas. Scientists calculated the note and found it was a B-flat, but it was about 57 octaves below middle C. This is a frequency so incredibly low that it would take 10 million years to complete one single vibration. It is, without exaggeration, the deepest, lowest note ever detected in the universe. NASA had to scale it up by hundreds of quadrillions of times just to make it audible to the human ear. The result is a haunting, guttural moan. It's the literal sound of a black hole, and it sounds exactly as terrifying as you'd think it would. Number 2. Earth's defense scream. You might think of Earth as a relatively quiet place in the grand cosmic orchestra, aside from the occasional lightning-induced whistle. But our planet has a scream, and you can only hear it when it's being attacked. The sun isn't always the benevolent, life-giving orb we know and love. It regularly throws massive tantrums called coronal mass ejections, or CMEs. These are gigantic explosions of plasma and magnetic fields that rocket across the solar system. When one of these solar storms heads our way, it smashes into Earth's magnetosphere, our planetary force field. The collision is astronomically violent, and while we can't hear it in the traditional sense, the radio waves generated by this impact, when converted to sound, are absolutely terrifying. It's a chaotic symphony of static, shrieks, and crackling energy. It sounds like a horror movie where the phone lines are down and the monster is scraping its claws against the side of the house. This isn't the sound of an alien. It's the sound of our own planet's shield holding strong against a billion-ton barrage of solar energy. The different pitches and tones represent different plasma wave phenomena occurring as the magnetic fields bend, break, and reconnect. It's the raw audio of a planetary defense system being pushed to its absolute limit. A scream of effort, not of fear. Number 1. The cry of a frozen moon. This is it. The sound that is the least explainable and the most genuinely unnerving. In 1989, the Voyager 2 spacecraft flew past Neptune and its bizarre moon, Triton. This place is one of the coldest, darkest objects in our solar system, with a surface of frozen nitrogen and geysers that spew ice miles into its thin atmosphere. As if that wasn't creepy enough, Voyager 2's plasma wave instrument picked up signals from the environment around Triton. When converted to audio, the result is a pure, unadulterated scream. It's not a whistle, a hum, or a crackle. It's a sound that rises and falls with an organic, wailing quality that sends a chill right down your spine. It sounds like something is in pain. Scientifically, the sound is likely generated by the interaction between charged particles in Neptune's magnetosphere and Triton's wispy ionosphere. The Moon is one of the few in the solar system with its own atmosphere, however thin, and this creates a unique and complex electrical environment. But that scientific explanation does absolutely nothing to make the recording less scary. It's the sound of a lonely, frozen moon at the edge of the solar system, crying out into the void. It is, by far, the most unsettling noise we have ever recorded from space. A perfect example of the universe creating a sound that feels far too much like a scream for comfort. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.